Hello, and welcome back to Sophie's Movies, the podcast where we have watched some movies, maybe, but we are going to talk about them regardless. We have, again, created, for first-time listeners, a movie bracket with 128 movies that the internet tells us we should like. That is going to be debated heavily this week, as we are looking this week at Intolerance and Modern Times. Again, these movies are ranked against each other, hoping that one day, years down the line, we might figure out what the greatest movie of all time is, according to the internet and our incredibly objective opinions. I'm Jaden Bickle, as always.
I'm Kennedy Grant.
Hey, I'm Av.
All right, so our lower seed this week, and this is where we might get into the internet giving us movies that we should like, is Intolerance. So this was seeded 118. It was ranked 49 on American Film Institute's Top 100. It was also selected kind of as an early landmark film. I'll be up front, this was a big shot in the dark for me. This is the first time we have watched a movie I had not seen before, so that is my experience with this. I can, from my understanding, pretty similar experiences all around.
Yeah, I had definitely not seen that movie, nor do I think that I would have watched it the whole way through had it not been for this podcast and my dedication to our art form. So you're welcome.
At what point do you think you would have turned it off?
I think the moment, probably about 30 minutes in, when I realized that I had no idea who anyone was or what was happening or what was going on or what was being said.
And all the movie had given us at that point was who everyone was?
Yeah, because I told you, it was kind of like watching an... What is that called at the end of a book?
Appendix?
It was an appendix. It was just here's this, and then it would show that, and then it'd be like, here's this, and then it would show that, and you're like, what does it mean? When does it connect? Never.
So in general for silent films, I did know about Charlie Chaplin a little bit. Never really seen any of his movies. I had no idea Intolerance existed. That was a rough go for Intolerance. I like that when you get older in every generation, we put on subtitles to understand what's going on screen. And technically speaking, Intolerance did have subtitles, yet I still do not know what the hell happened.
Nope.
Yeah, so I think this one is going to be maybe one of the shorter discussions we have. In slight defense of this movie making the list, and for any viewers that did end up watching it, I do think it's kind of cool to see early film language kind of come together and be made up on the spot. That being said, it is definitely not, on the note of not really understanding what's going on, it's not developed enough to the point to make the movie coherent. And going into this, I had read reviews from the time that said, it didn't really make sense. And I was like, that's just because people didn't understand movies at the time. This will probably be fine. Those reviews were more fair than I was giving them credit going into this.
I think in defense of me also absolutely hating this film is something that we talked about right after, which is that language that you come to even subconsciously recognize in movies where you're like, this shot means this, and this sort of pan into this area means this, and this is setting up for this. And the movie doesn't have any of that because it didn't exist yet. It's talking in a brand new language that literally no one, including all of the actors, directors, and writers, knew yet. So I think if it was made today, it would still be utter nonsense, but I would probably be like, artsy.
Yeah, the two shots I kind of pointed out as, okay, this is something, is there's a shot where Mountain Girl, because barely any of these characters actually have names unless they're part of the Jesus story. Mountain Girl, there's a close-up of her fist clenching to show that she's getting angry.
It's the Arthur meme.
The Arthur meme. The earliest I will almost guarantee this is the earliest example of the Arthur meme. And the other one being Dear One. Again, despite there being an appendix at the start of this movie that is almost 40 minutes long, not a lot of names going around. Dear One, there's a close-up of her hands where she is wringing them out to show that she is stressed. Other than those two things, not a whole lot of film language going on here at this point. I mean, there is subtle things. but nothing as explicit as those. And again, that does make this kind of hard to follow at times.
I want to say, like, if they, realistically speaking, they would not have made, like, 4 separate movies. Like, if they had at least maybe instead of 4 and 3 little stories, but, like, maybe do it to completion instead of this jumbled, this weird circus of this is going on at every point at a single time throughout the age.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is in 1918, this movie was re-released as 2 different movies, both movies only telling 2 of the stories. I don't know a lot of details about that, I'm sorry. But even then, apparently it was still pretty hard to follow for audiences at the time. And, like, to me, I can see through themes and, like, the editing. I can see almost how the writing of this makes sense. But then I think this is an interesting thing about movies as an art. On the writing side, I can see where this makes sense. Once you get to the editing, though, it kind of falls apart. Because there is an example of, like, there is 4 different weddings, and they are all back to back to back, to the best of my knowledge. So, like, you can see those through lines in the writing room, but then, like, actually editing, I think more than anything, the technology is just not there to make it clear enough.
They could have put a different colored patina over every single wedding.
Anything. Because even as we were watching the movie, we were trying to figure out, wait, was this that wedding or this wedding? Like, we couldn't distinguish between the different weddings because they all happened back to back to back.
One whole wedding was, like, if I'm remembering correctly, introduced during this, like, wedding sequence with characters we had never met before.
Yeah.
So, like, this is the first time. They weren't mentioned in the appendix.
And Jesus was there.
And Jesus was there.
Jesus was mentioned in the appendix, I think. I vaguely remember something about Jesus, maybe.
I can definitely tell that this Jesus, maybe not the first, was definitely, like, a big part of how we portray Jesus now.
Right.
Because, like, even I was like, Jesus, before it even said anything, I was like, that's who he is. He's just walking around with, like, the serene look on his face and just being, like, white with his palms out. Yeah. That's Jesus.
Yeah, and I think, like, a huge part of this movie is you see how it has influenced film, but thankfully films down the line have taken the influence of this movie and done it better.
Yeah. I think the fact that you can tell some things came out of it, some really cool things came out of it, and we should, acknowledge that it probably opened doors for some really cool stuff to happen afterwards. This wasn't it, y'all. This was, just because it's first doesn't mean that it was good.
I mean, I want to say the set pieces, though, and everything that happened in the background.
The sets are incredible.
Like, I don't really remember seeing movies growing up that had sets that intensely built. Granted, with labor laws now that they have.
They're few and far between.
How many people were injured?
There was, if I recall correctly, I have it written down here, there was 3,000 extras, and one of the battle scenes, I want to say the Babylonian battle scene where Cyrus is first sieging Babylon, there were 60 injuries that required hospitalization.
One of the guys that got beheaded. That was one of them.
There was
Real
also
beheading.
A bunch of animals clearly unhappy. Like a tied up jaguar.
It's a jaguar and a bear.
Yeah, this film's a lot closer to P.T. Barnum than it's probably.
Being pulled across the screen.
Yeah, this movie
There
feels
was a lot of animals harmed in the making of this film.
This movie feels a lot closer to P.T. Barnum than Bringing Up Baby. For those that don't know, there are 2 jaguars that were on the set of Bringing Up Baby, and they were both treated very well, from my understanding. I could be wrong about that. I swear, if one of our 5 viewers comments that I was wrong about that. I haven't researched Bringing Up Baby that extensively. Maybe in a future not bracket episode we can talk about Bringing Up Baby, because that movie is pretty funny.
We're gonna forget immediately.
I'm taking notes on the movies I bring up. I will keep track of something, because when we finally finish this in 40 years, gonna have to look back and be like, what the hell did we talk about?
What movie do we do now? I'm sure we won't have added 80 million new movies by then.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
We can't forget the iconic line, though, in Intolerance. Tish, Tish, this is no place to eat an onion.
This is no place to eat an onion.
This is no place to eat a raw onion, mountain girl.
Yeah, and again, I like a lot of like the close-ups to show reactions. That's really cool because the director of this, D.W. Griffith, did it first. But like that's not special anymore. That's standard.
Like, yes, thank you. You invented something really cool, and we're all going to use it, but better.
Yeah, I do like a lot of things this movie does. From a superficial level.
I like what it attempts.
Yeah, I like the ambition on display here.
And there's definitely ambition. I think a lot of people were hurt for this ambition. I also think that the director, not to speak ill of the dead, because I doubt anyone involved in this project
We can
is still
speak ill of
alive.
D.W. Griffith.
It's really ham-fisted in a way that kind of suggests that he automatically assumed that his audience was going to be stupid. Because, like, every time it explains something or, like, Bible quote, it's just so on the nose with what's happening. They're like, yeah, anyone who watches a movie is a dumbass, which is so interesting because no one had really watched movies yet.
I will
So they started off assuming their audience was stupid, and we've been the suckers ever since.
I will defend that in a superficial sort of way. Part of the real life story of this movie is prior to this, D.W. Griffith made Birth of a Nation. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to do an episode about. I watched it once for film school, and that's 3 hours of my life I'll never get back. And part of Intolerance was D.W. Griffith wanted to get as far away from the views of A Birth of a Nation as possible because he didn't agree with them, but it was like how he could get approved to make this grand scale movie. And then after the success of that, he was basically told, okay, now you can actually do whatever you want. So I get that the themes are ham-fisted, but a lot of people at the time were probably coming into this expecting Birth of a Nation. And so I get the appeal of just blatantly being like, I'm going to beat you over the head with Birth of a Nation is not what you should be watching.
Okay, I see the dilemma that situation called for, because, like, Birth of a Nation. Oh my gosh. So I understand wanting to overcorrect with this, but I don't think that it was done successfully, and I don't think that being ham-fisted with it aided the
And I agree, because I think the final World War I, active war at the time, the jump to that is jarring.
Wild.
I think even at the time that's jarring.
You're just like, that's just potentially real footage of World War I.
Which I think, and we can kind of use this as a transition unless you guys have anything else to say about Intolerance.
I found it intolerable.
All I have to say is I really like when we ask the question of what's going to happen in Intolerance, and it immediately happens afterwards. Like, a dude kicking down the door.
Trick.
But yeah, so kind of transitioning from there, I don't think Charlie Chaplin is necessarily the most subtle of filmmakers, but he's subtle in a way that he's not subtle in a way that works. So much better than Intolerance.
Gosh, right?
I mean, some of that stuff is so on the nose that a lot of it still applies today, but it's very much on the nose.
Yes, I should be tolerant, and intolerance is bad, but you can't just put the word intolerance into sentences randomly just to make it work. Like, he was changing grammatical structures so that you would get... You can't, like, use a synonym that would have worked better? No, it has to be the
Has
world
to
of
be
Intolerance.
Intolerance.
You need to know that word in particular is the bad word.
It's important.
I didn't realize how passionate I was about that. So, let's talk about Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, so...
I love him so much.
Yeah, modern times, despite being all the way back in 1935, this is seated 11. A very high-ranking film. We're almost the top 10. I don't think we've covered a top 10 movie yet. This was chosen as an auteur pick for Charlie Chaplin. Basically, the internet said this is his best work. It is also on AFI's top 100 list, where it is ranked 78. So actually ranked below Intolerance. I think AFI might have missed the bag on that one.
I think there's some biasness.
I wouldn't disagree with
That's a word
that.
I made up and then jammed into the sentence where I wanted it to be.
As you do. And as you're apparently allowed to. So yeah, I know, Af, you said you'd heard of Charlie Chaplin, but not really seen a lot of his work.
Yeah, I think it was a documentary that I saw years ago, just about different Charlie Chaplin movies. I can't remember the life of me, like, what scenes it really talked about, but I know it did display what was it? When he was the security guard for the mall? Or for the market?
Yeah,
like,
the Night
does,
Watcher.
like a little circle, it looks like he's gonna fall back.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely depicted that and how they created that shot and the layers that they went through. There was also in a different movie, he was on a train. On the edge of the train, and there was a block of wood stuck in the rails, and he had to take another block of wood and hit it before the train ran over it.
If I recall correctly, the train one is actually Buster Keaton.
It might have just been a documentary about silent films in general then.
Let me double check that.
I think it was about stunts. I think it was about silent movie
Yeah,
stunts.
that one was Buster Keaton. But, I mean, it's a testament. And I think on the note of how they did the roller skating, it's interesting how film technology shifted so much in 20 years. I mean, we still see that now. 20 years ago was early 2000s. Yeah, movies are not what they were in the early 2000s.
It was 2004.
Oof. But even with that, I mean, you get the matte painting instead of this massive production set design. It's safer. You don't send 60 people to the hospital with a matte painting.
There wasn't 60 people in this movie.
Also not 60 people in this movie to send to the hospital. But yeah, interesting how, like, technology kind of changes with that.
When I was looking at the cast and crew, because I have seen Charlie Chaplin movies before, I have memories of watching, like, black and white kind of slapstick stuff real young at my grandparents' house. So I grew up with, like, the knowledge of who he was and what he did from a very young age. And it wasn't until looking at the cast and crew of this, like, truly recognizing how phenomenal and capable of a person he was. Like, he hand invented a lot of what we know and understand about movies today.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was the writer, he was the director, he starred in it, he was the stunt coordinator, he wrote the music and performed the music. Like, this man, when he made a movie, like, he made the whole movie. He's the only one that deserves that term you throw around all the time.
Yeah. Definitely an incredible auteur. Yeah, just doing some research, he started working on movies in 1908, movies in quotations, for that early. But started working with cameras, so, like, very capable. Going into, like, modern times, I think is an interesting period for him. Coming off of City Lights. Yes, City Lights was his movie before this in 1931. He went on a world tour and essentially became a lot more political and wanted to incorporate more politics into his art. And he also, at this point, Jazz Singer had came out almost a decade before this. So there was a lot of pushback to make this not a silent movie, to make it a talkie. And Charlie Chaplin...
Wait, were they really called talkies?
They were really called talkies, yes. It was a real term.
I don't like that.
We'll get into it with Singing in the Rain. But, yeah, so Charlie Chaplin had a lot of push to make this a talkie. He pushed back. He even had a script ready to go in case he had to make this a talkie. But he pushed back mainly because the main character in this, Little Tramp, had been in a number of silent movies, and he wanted to keep that character as a silent character. But I think it's interesting going back and like watching the earlier films of Little Tramp, because he's always like poor, homeless often, not very successful. You know, Charlie Chaplin is always speaking to that group of people. But I think with this, and I think this is a big reason this film still hits so hard today and it's still so funny, he really starts attacking larger political groups like corporations, particularly with the factory scenes and whatnot.
And it's clear that the police and the corporation bosses are the bad guys.
It does not like the police.
Man was a leftist for sure.
That is something, learning about Charlie Chaplin. This man, especially after his 2-year world tour in 1932 and 33, was so against fascism because he saw so much fascism going on at that time, which obviously led him to make movies like The Great Dictator. He was so against fascism that he was then accused of being a communist, to the point where he actually fled the United States for 20 years. From 1952 to 1972, he did not step foot in the United States for fear of being chased down by McCarthyism and whatnot. Which, when I was reading this on Monday, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And, 3 days later, not so crazy. But that's a real life starting to hit a little bit scarier when it comes to Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, for anyone who's watching this whenever this actually gets posted, we are on election week right now, 2 days removed.
Yeah, we watched the movies, and then the election happened, and then now we're here.
And we've already openly identified ourselves as queers, so there's no escaping this for us
going
now.
Back.
I could edit that out. Fix it in post, right?
Just you saying and not us explaining it.
No explanation.
I just had a thought like a second ago. Charlie Chaplin is the first Mr. Bean, if you want to think about it.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah.
And Bugs Bunny, like I said, because you could, oh my gosh, the way he's, in the very beginning when he's having his nervous breakdown, and he's just like dancing through the factory and spraying everybody with oil in the face, it's so legitimately funny, and that I love that it's, more than 100 years later, and it's still so funny, but you can see the inspiration behind these like chaotic characters like Bugs Bunny, and I really like that. That makes me really happy.
One of my favorite bits from modern times that I think also hits very close to home is when he is on the machine that's trying to feed him while standing. Man, can you imagine if Jeff Bezos could figure out a way to feed his employees while they kept working?
Absolute, 100%.
The end.
100%.
But like, even on the slapstick, the way Charlie Chaplin just keeps getting smacked in the face, his expressions while he's actually trying to shove all that food in his mouth. Absolute insanity. Yeah, nothing quite like it. And like, there's a lot of tricks that go into that, a lot of stuff you don't see off the camera. And I think it's really a testament, again, kind of talking about how films changed from 1916 to 1935, 36. The old tricks that Charlie Chaplin used still work. I mean, the matte painting, we talked right off the bat about the matte painting with the roller skates. That's the type of stuff you see in Star Wars. And as much as they try to get away with that, from that with green screens, we now have something like the volume, which I would argue is just an evolved form of a matte painting, except now you have an LED screen behind you. And rear projection, not a whole lot of rear projection in this, but still a very old trick that is commonly used. Rear projection more comes into the scene, I think, with King Kong a couple years before this, but Charlie Chaplin invented a lot of tricks early on that are still very much used, which I think is a testament to how skilled he is.
I'm thinking about now, like, what if we make a modern silent movie just with the technology we have now and see how far you can actually take it?
A really interesting film to watch is The Artist.
Okay.
Which won Best Picture in 2012 or 2013. A novelty kind of film We could absolutely do an episode on The Artist. But yeah, very much a modern silent film that uses all the old technologies. Yeah, I'd love to talk about The Artist.
I think we should make our own silent film. It'll be the opposite of this podcast.
We could do it and post it on our YouTube channel. I'm all about that type of stuff. I will gladly jump off any building required. I'm ready.
Angie's gonna murder us.
That's fine.
Our decks would be perfect to jump off of. Where's your crash pad?
It's in my storage unit.
Let's go get it.
We're ready to go. We have the tools. I have 2 crash pads.
Excellent.
One of which got ran over by a truck, which is a whole thing.
Is it?
It's safe.
It's okay?
It's safe enough, yeah.
So you take that one, and I'll take the one that wasn't ran over by a truck.
Deal.
Cool.
I'm more impartial to take the one that was ran over by the truck because it's called a crash pad. It crashed into it, so it's still good.
I think there's some survivor bias going on, but we're not going to get into that.
I'd be down to make a silent movie, but my one request is we get 2 doves taped together with a little chariot.
Oh, absolutely.
A little chariot of doves. Okay.
I think also, on the note of Charlie Chaplin and kind of talking about Buster Keaton, the other big, like, silent stuntman I kind of watch a lot, really appreciate is Harold Lloyd. I think Buster Keaton did crazier stunts. He's, almost always getting hit by trains and whatnot. I think Charlie Chaplin is funnier, though. Mm-hmm. I think Harold Lloyd is somewhere in between the two. It's kind of how I feel about that. I would also love to do a piece on safety last. I'm throwing out a lot of silent movies on this episode. But I was also thinking on the note, because I know we talked a couple episodes about doing a piece on Martin Scorsese. Doing a lot of research into Charlie Chaplin, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a Charlie Chaplin piece either. He seems like an incredible human being.
And his most, I'm going to say that a lot of his movies are probably not 2.5 hours long.
No.
So I'm way ahead of you on that. Let's go.
Yeah. And I'll throw this one out there again. I rewatched The Great Dictator, partially for this and partially after Tuesday night. That movie hits hard. I'm glad we went with Modern Times for this the bracket. I think Modern Times is a slightly better film. But his films are really timeless. I think this is something we will run into a little bit more as we run into older movies that are still considered great. There is something about these older filmmakers that still resonate, where they just understand the symptom of humanity. Like, Charlie Chaplin gets it. He knows what's wrong with humanity. Yeah. And I think that's why this movie is still as well regarded as it is.
I think it helps that we're still suffering from the same sort of, societal ills. Yeah. We are not making enough money. Our bosses still suck. Corporations suck. We should unionize. And the police are scary.
Yeah.
And that they will hunt you after a month.
For taking bread.
Yeah. It was a month after. What are you doing?
I told you it's Javert. He Les Mis'd it.
And then the best thing you can do in the end is join the food service industry and get tips.
Oh, yeah. God. Better learn to sing.
I also, on the note of the singing, God, there's so much I love about this movie. Charlie Chaplin does not speak Italian. Everything that he sings in that scene is gibberish. It has no meaning. He was just making it up in tune with the song as it went. And it sounds perfect. I mean, he does the same thing, again, Great Dictator, when he gives speeches in German. Absolute gibberish. But he has that intelligence to be like, this is what this language sounds like. I don't speak this language, it doesn't matter. And to just go with it anyway.
2 things. That was actually him singing?
Yeah, that is the first time that Charlie Chaplin's voice was ever heard in a movie, to my understanding.
Okay. Second thing, I thought that was French.
Either way, it's gibberish.
I think a lot of opera is sung in Italian and not French, but I couldn't tell you enough about either or opera, really, to make a kind of sweeping statement like that.
Yeah, I thought I heard Je ne crois a lot during that singing scene with Charlie Chaplin, so that's why I thought initially it was French.
Well, they're both Latin-based languages.
They're both Latin-based languages.
Oh. So they have tacos.
I'm removing you as Speedy Gonzalez.
ever go to Italy, I need you to go to a taco place if you can find one, and just send me a picture of you eating whatever it is that they consider tacos. Okay. I hope it's like the freaking Mexican episode of the Great British Bake Off. I hope that's what you get.
They haven't... What?
You haven't seen the Mexican episode of the Great British Bake Off?
We can absolutely analyze that.
I need you to see it. It will physically hurt you. Like, it's physically hurt me, and now it's like The Grudge, and if I don't show it to you, I'll die, and then after, you'll have to show it to a new person.
Okay.
I also love... the Hays Code is weird to me. Okay, I'm going to just say the Hays Code is weird. So, a little bit about both movies. Intolerance comes out before the Hays Code exists. It's got titties. It's got blood. It's got decapitations. It's got it all. It's
got animal cruelty.
Yeah, incredible from some of that perspective. Not the animal cruelty stuff. Chaplin, particularly modern times, during the Hays Code, I don't understand how he got cocaine in this. I know he never expressly says cocaine, but it is very clearly cocaine. And I do love that cocaine gives Charlie Chaplin the power of Neo, and that he dodges those bullets because of cocaine.
So, cocaine might not have been fully criminalized at the time.
That is also something I didn't think about.
Because a lot of drugs didn't get that class system and thus become a controlled substance until later. I'm going to look that up really quickly.
I think you're onto something, because I think Coca-Cola did not become a brand or a thing until the 40s, and they very much had cocaine in their early recipes. Which is something maybe they should bring back. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I'm pretty sure they had a whole little scuffle, shall we say, over that plant.
It was made illegal. No, I shouldn't listen to the AI.
Not after the Riley thing. The Riley, oh god, I've been editing this episode and I still can't remember what her real name is.
Opium Law of 1928.
I think there's a classification, though. I don't think cocaine was classified as an opioid. Cocaine's not technically an opioid. I don't know anything about drugs. Government.
I'm actually kind of glad that you brought up the jail scene with that, because of Charlie Chaplin getting rewarded afterwards for saving the guards, and then him being released because of the governor, but him not wanting to leave because he's being treated well in prison, getting free meals, has a bed, a roof over his head. And I years ago heard stories that people will get arrested for the purpose of going back to jail instead of being on the streets. And I'm sure that still happens now, and it's just like, damn, really showing that systemical issues, even back then, were not different.
There was a lot of racism in the history of cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking into American history, so I expected racism. Way more than I would have anticipated. This is probably naive on my part.
This is something that I think is going to come back up because in The Godfather, when they switched to drugs, Vito Corleone, yes, Vito Corleone. Oh, I think I mixed that name up with a character from The Penguin. It doesn't matter. The Godfather, when they switched to drugs, says specifically, no children, target the black communities.
Ooh.
And that is a real-life historical thing that the mob did.
The Jones-Miller Act of 1922 put serious restriction on cocaine manufacturers. And up until 1914, you had to get a doctor's note. Or after 1914, you had to get a doctor's note to get cocaine. But it wasn't until the 1970s that it was, fully illegal. Which is when we did our modern, schedules of drug separation.
So, as per usual, it's probably Richard Nixon's fault.
It's usually Richard Nixon's
bastard.
I just stumbled all over that word.
We're just speaking ill of all the dead today. That's fine. Some people...
Fine. Everything's fine.
Oh, wait, he's dead? There was a movie about him a few years ago.
Yeah, you can't make movies about dead people.
It's just true. I on a very superficial level, I'd be curious what Dante rewriting of Dante's Inferno would look like from an American today.
Oh no.
Well, there's an anime about it. I can tell you that much.
There's also a video game.
Yeah, no, there's that. I just want to...
I'm going to let you know that the book, Dante's Inferno, is a little different than the video game. Just so you know.
Fun fact, I've actually read the book.
Did you read the sequel?
There's a sequel.
There's two. It's a trilogy.
No!
It's this fan fiction about him and his buddies going to heaven now.
Yeah.
Like, they go through purgatory. Like
The second
Dante's
one's
Inferno is
about
going through
purgatory.
hell, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the second one's going through purgatory, and then
Up the mountain.
going through heaven.
And then seeing
Him
all
and
the
his best
stars.
buddies. It's a self-insert fan fiction.
Is it
literally
Virgil, the self-insert? I forget.
No,
Dante is. Virgil is
Oh.
his historical crush.
Yeah.
But Virgil is not in the last one. Paradiso, he's not in that one because he cannot get into heaven. Dante reunites with his dead wife in that one.
Okay. Did he have a scythe, though?
We're not talking about books on this podcast. Maybe down the line we can branch
we only
out.
have an hour. We need to reel it in.
Maybe down the line we can branch into literature. I'm not ready for that. Not even a little bit ready for that. I've been complaining to Ken about the Odyssey all day today because I'm almost done with it. But that's not what this is about. I think this was an interesting pairing against all odds. Something I really like about this pairing is Intolerance, obviously like one of the first movies ever. I did not fully know this before doing research, but Modern Times is considered the last silent movie of the silent era.
Oh.
Again, jazz singer, first talkie came out about a decade before. And this was it. They didn't do any more silent movies except for stuff like The Artist. That was like a throwback novelty type deal.
Do you think calling it Modern Times was kind of a nod to that as well? Like the end of an era, sort of like, well, we better get with modern times.
I think Modern Times has a lot of layers to it. Because there is that element of it. Modern Times also very much insinuates this is the world we're living in. Again, because of his more political aspirations. I love that he gets arrested for being a communist in this movie, too. Of all the things he gets arrested for, one of the things he gets arrested for is being a communist.
There's also a lot of, like,
which
pro-union...
Oh, yeah. Again, this man in real life spoke so vehemently at rallies against fascism that they then turned around and was like, he has to be a communist. Nobody hates fascism that much unless they are a red Russian communist infiltrator, KG agent. KGB agent.
I like KG.
KG's better.
That's my name.
It is. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, sleeper agent.
It's me. Jessica.
But yeah, I like this contrast. I also love, just on the note of Charlie Chaplin understanding humanity so thoroughly, the last dialogue card of the silent era goes to Little Tramp, the main character, and it says, "Buck up, never say die, we'll get along." And damn, what a line to end it on. Just like, it's hard, we're poor, we don't know what's like the last shot of them going down the road. No idea what's going to happen. It's scary, but by God, we're going to get along and we're going to figure it out. I love...
What a great way to preach tolerance.
Yeah, like on the note of intolerance not being subtle, and neither is Modern Times. Modern Times is so thoroughly wholesome and optimistic in spite of a lot of shitty things happening to this guy.
It does it without spelling it out on the screen. I am quite mad.
But yeah, Charlie Chaplin just gets it. I mean, buck up, never say die, we'll get along is such an incredible line. Again, I just watched Great Dictator. The last speech of Great Dictator. He always has this way of ending his movies on this kind of cynical note, but with this great, grand optimism that I think is just an incredible characteristic of Charlie Chaplin.
I on the note of the ending for Charlie Chaplin, I'm just curious about if there was a potential storyline of the homeless woman and her two sisters, because like we never see them again, and then they run off. No, wait.
What?
No, because like the homeless girl, she has two sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
they were taken away by the police, and then she runs away from the house after their father died.
I remember reading something about this, and I think Charlie Chaplin has openly admitted that was just a mistake that he made. What? He meant to reincorporate them into the movie later, and it just didn't.
The sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some character that disappears in this movie that he meant to reincorporate later, and then somewhere along the writing process just didn't. I think it was those two characters.
Yeah, it was those two characters.
Yeah, and she doesn't seem particularly concerned about her sisters
No.
ever again.
No.
She's just like, let's have a house.
Like, when you fall in love with Charlie Chaplin, why would you care about anything else after that?
What family? So, like, lots of pro-union, but not very pro-family.
I love how many things are wrong with that house. Just, like, everything that can go wrong with that house does. I think it's, like, something we can get into more with comedies down the line. It's just squeezing every possible joke out of a scene.
And when it's done well, it's so beautiful to see.
And even like, we have this waterfront property. He dives into the water and just somersaults
across the surface.
It's like,
It's never deep.
Not very deep.
I think for the rest, like, I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as just the opening scene after he loses his mind, where he's just running around dancing and like causing mischief and spraying people in the face with oil. And then when they take the large oil away from him, he pulls out a smaller one and sprays the next person. I laughed so hard. I thought I was gonna like struggle to breathe for the rest of my life.
Again, just get every last joke you can out of there. I think it's a staple of slapstick comedy. Incredible. I think, is there anything else you guys want to say about Modern Times?
No, that's it for me.
Fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Think this verdict's going to be a
will
quick.
win.
Again, I think I dug Intolerance more than you guys. I appreciate a lot about it. It's fine. I need Peter here because he would defend this with me. But
and I would call you both snobbish.
But of course,
incorrect.
It's a snobbish take. But of course, I wrote this down. Peter is in, hold that thought, stuttering, the sometimes House of Intolerance right now. Which, as the look on your face suggests, you don't remember this.
Galilee?
No. When the boy goes to jail.
France.
No, this was the New York story. When the boy goes to jail, just the boy, no name.
Peter's in jail?
No, Peter, he's in the Sometimes House of Intolerance. And that is canon for our podcast.
Peter went to jail.
But, maybe one day he'll get out of the Sometimes House of Intolerance just to get framed again and then maybe hung.
He was framed.
But last minute not hung. I'll throw this out there. That is an interesting bit of tension building before they understood what tension building is. Just how close the boy gets to being hung and just like every last stop of don't do it.
Building. I mean, this
in storytelling,
in storytelling,
but more visual.
In plays, like they had productions. They knew how to keep an audience.
Yeah,
engaged.
that's fair.
They weren't like shooting in the dark. There were steps between.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yelling in the streets, and then whatever this was.
I think it was an early example of the Alfred Hitchcock idea of let them know there's a bomb. We know he's going to be hung. So now you're just waiting for the bomb to go off. It's not a surprise. But yeah, I don't know.
I think having everybody up until that scene die, like, built the tension better for me. So I was like, oh no, the only character whose name I know.
Boy.
His name was the boy.
No, that
Even
is...
though he was an adult man with a child of his own.
That is an interesting thing, because Jesus dies, everyone in Babylon dies. Yeah, we have a pretty idea. Everyone in France dies. They throw that child into the streets.
Mountain Girl dies.
Mountain Girl dies.
The Beloved dies.
Again, with Intolerance, there is a lot of like cool things, early filmmaking techniques going on. At the end of the day, it's fine, and Modern Times is incredible.
He No, I'm not gonna get it. I'm still angry. Modern Times wins.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I do Modern Times.
Again,
But honorable mention, the two doves with the chariot.
the two doves with the chariot. That was almost as funny as the least funny joke in Modern Times, and I respect
they
that.
attached a tiny little chariot to two doves, but clearly the doves weren't gonna move, so they just pulled the doves and the chariot across the screen.
And the fact that the two characters that the two doves are moving stuff for are sitting so close to each other, they could hand it to each other, but no, we're gonna torture these two doves.
The two doves were there where Matt's and girl died.
Yeah, like he had to have known on some level, like, that was funny, and I'm gonna reincorporate that as a joke at the end. Callback humor. Maybe the first of
I
its
don't think
kind
that scene was supposed to
in
have
movies.
humor.
I don't think it was either. You would think no, but the fact that why would he include the doves again?
I don't think that
There's
the
no
doves was supposed to be funny.
There's no reason for the doves to be there at the
I think it was supposed
end.
to illustrate how rich and important these people were.
Okay, so you're reincorporating the symbol of wealth and the people that have now died
and the
because they're having
between like this symbol of wealth and then everybody dying.
because they're too busy having an orgy to defend their walls.
Yeah.
I like to believe that the two doves actually could move the entire time, and they chose to walk in during Mountain Girl's death scene, and no one noticed until the
Yeah,
Accepted. I like it.
I am intrigued just in general, kind of wrapping things up on how older movies are going to fare in this tournament. I think Modern Times might actually fare pretty well.
Which is a testament to, once again, how amazing Charlie Chaplin
Yeah.
is.
And these are some of the oldest movies we're going to talk about. I think we have a couple more older ones that are like around this era coming up down the line. I'm intrigued how they're going to fare. Lack of technology, but I think Modern Times is in good hands. Intolerance, having actually watched it now, I don't think there was a world in which Intolerance made it out of the first round.
I'm glad that I watched it just so I can see where this art form that I truly love came from.
Oh yeah, I think on a very
And should avoid in the future.
real level, if I ever were to become a college professor, especially in some sort of film studies, I'd show students Intolerance well before I showed them Birth of a Nation.
Right?
3 hours of my life I will never
Oh my
get back.
god. I've still never seen it, but I know what it is, so I don't have to.
No idea what that is.
Oh,
You
it's a
should
movie.
just learn what it is.
Okay.
It's a movie that Woodrow Wilson showed in the White House.
Oh, okay. So, like, maybe if Beartooth shows it there after the
Beartooth
Muppets.
won't show
Never.
it.
No?
There
No.
would be massive protests.
Oh.
Maybe not massive. We do live in Anchorage.
Also, I mean, Tuesday night, they might show it in the White House again.
I'll Google it.
Oh, God. Google it, watch clips, don't waste 3 hours and 15 minutes of your life on it, as some of us have.
I'll watch a 3-hour video essay on it. instead.
Yeah, watch some YouTuber explain it to you for 4 hours instead.
Or even easier, watch Black Klansman, because Spike Lee does show clips from Birth of a Nation in Black Klansman, and Black Klansman is much cooler than Birth of a Nation, and actually really incredible, and
Yeah,
you should
I
check
really
it out.
like that movie. Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about it. I don't even know if I could rewatch that movie after this week.
Oh my god.
Oh God.
I can't wait till we get a movie that I get to be snobbish about.
I'm so excited.
There's a couple on the list that I'm like, I'm gonna be intolerable.
Yeah.
I'll stop. How much time do we have?
Hey, just enough time to point out real quick that, man, making a Batman connection to either one of these movies is hard.
Uphill battle.
The best one, I think this is the better one, best one we came up with, is there's an actor in Intolerance amongst the 3,000 actors named Bob Herron, who shares the exact same name with a stuntman who worked on Batman Forever. That's what Ken and I found. That's the best we're going to go with. On the note of our final segment, and our most important segment above all else, I would love to watch Charlie Chaplin interact with Muppets.
Oh,
I'll throw it out there.
100%.
Charlie Chaplin stays, everyone else Muppets.
100. That's the only option.
Yeah, no, I'd
And Charlie
kill.
Chaplin is a Muppet.
I would revive Charlie Chaplin if that were possible to get a Charlie Chaplin Muppets movie.
And I'm just going to reiterate what I said when we were watching it. He's the most non-binary energy on screen that I've ever seen.
Yeah. Even with his
He was
outdated
a
mustache.
before
even with his incredibly outdated mustache.
Okay, one person ruined that for everybody.
Which, you know what? Having rewatched The Great Dictator, funnily enough, Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler were born in the same year. And with that little mustache, I mean, he slides right into that role. Doesn't need to change his appearance at all. Because...
Well, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I always heard that Hitler modeled his mustache after Charlie Chaplin.
I mean, if Hitler hadn't had that mustache, I'd try to model my mustache after Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, 100%.
I love we can kind of wind down on this. I love the joke in the show Archer, if you've ever seen it.
I've seen Archer.
Where it flashes back to him as a little kid on Halloween, and he's clearly dressed as Charlie Chaplin, but every time it cuts back to modern day Archer, he says of his costume, "Why was I dressed like Hitler in that flashback?" Incredible joke. I need to rewatch Archer. I haven't watched it in so long.
I relate to Archer a lot, just like as a character, because I too am super smart and also really, really dumb.
Yeah, the fact that he makes... We need to wind down, but the fact that Archer makes really deep-cut literature references and is also just an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So you see it, yeah. Like.
Yeah.
I never watched Archer. I was more of a Venture Bros kind of watcher.
Venture Bros is dope. I like Venture Bros a lot.
Yeah, I think that will do it for this week. Thankfully, we didn't talk about Intolerance very much, so we got more time to talk about an incredible movie. Thanks for watching. Join us next week or whenever this comes out, whenever the next episode comes out, as we're going to be jumping ahead in time, but not too far, don't worry, when we talk about Rebel Without a Cause and It's a Wonderful Life. So that's going to do it from us with Sophie Watches Movies. If you didn't hear a lot of piggy noises this time, Sophie is passed the fuck out right now.
She is tuckered. She had a big day. She had 2 walkabouts.
So yeah, I think that'll do it. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.